What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and Sony may have inadvertently just spoiled the ending of Spider-Man 3 and the events of Doctor Strange 2. Okay, so here's the thing. I was hit up by a fan on Twitter, and they said, hey man, have you checked the Oscorp Industries website recently? And I had no idea what they were talking about. And they sent me screenshots. And then I remembered, and I don't know if you guys recall, back during the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films, Sony went on a viral thing, right? Where they were doing like all this viral information and stuff like that in an effort to drum up interest for the movies. One of the things they'd done is they had created an Oscorp Industry website that was basically designed to mirror what you would see if Oscorp Industries exists in the real world, right? Part of the online viral campaign. The website's still up, and there's a huge revelation there. But before we get into that, we need to actually address something, right? So it's entirely possible this website's fake. And here's the reason why I say that. The original Oscorp Industry website URL was oscorpindustries.com. This one is oscorp-industries.com. So it's entirely possible it's fake. Or it could be that it was designed that way because now it's Oscorp in a different universe, therefore a different company URL, right? In the same way that Venom woke up in a new reality and the hotel was occupied by somebody else. I don't know, whatever kind of logic you want to use. So that's one thing we do need to acknowledge. It is entirely possible that it's fake. Having acknowledged that, let's let our imaginations run wild. So here's the thing about this, man. If this is true, it changes everything. Why? Because it says that Oscorp Industries is now in a joint venture with Stark Industries, that they're basically partnering and they're working together. Did Oscorp Industries buy Stark Industries? I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. Here's the thing. Oscorp Industries, if it does exist in the MCU, this changes a few things. One, we basically know that at the very least, Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, they will basically stay in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this may be a part of the deal that was worked out between Sony and Marvel not too long ago. And here's the reason why I say that. When you look at the Sony solo Spider-Man films, while I will say that like some of the other movies made more money, different things like that, the Tom Holland movies are the ones that we seem to enjoy the most. Why? Because Tom Holland's in the MCU. Because you get to see Spider-Man doing his own thing, but then you get to see him fight alongside the Avengers. And one of the things that Sony and Marvel had to have come to the conclusion with, specifically as it related to allowing Marvel to use Tom Holland in the MCU, is that they are greater than the sum of their parts. That Sony and Marvel Studios working in unison brings a much better product for the fans, and we're more likely to watch it more times, thus generating more money for them than if they do it on their own. If you never see Spider-Man in the MCU and you only see him in Sony films. And so I'd have to believe this would be a continuation of what they've been doing. That the Sony multiverse isn't so much its own multiverse as it is, or at least was at one point, and is now being merged with the Marvel Cinematic Universe to create one singular cohesive universe. In terms of rights and all that kind of stuff, I don't know, right? Sony probably keeps on making Spider-Man movies. They keep all the money from that. Marvel keeps everything else that Spider-Man appears in. I have no idea if that's going to be the case. The important thing here is that with this revelation, it would solidify that not only does the Green Goblin stay in the MCU, but seemingly almost any of the other villains. But here's the best thing about this, right? It has nothing to do with Spider-Man. The significance of Norman Osborn and Oscorp being in the MCU has nothing to do with Peter Parker, at least not as far as I'm concerned, has nothing to do with him. Why? Let's turn to Marvel Comics for a second and talk about something called the Ultimate Universe, which we've talked about before, but the Ultimate Universe was basically an answer to the question in the year 2000, what if superheroes came into existence today? What would they look like, right? Ultimate Spider-Man was basically the one that spearheaded that and is the reason why the Ultimate Universe became as popular as it was. But in the Ultimate Universe line of comics, Peter Parker received his powers from a bite from a radioactive spider that was created by Oscorp using something called the Oz Formula. What was the Oz Formula? The Oz Formula was Oscorp's attempt to duplicate the super soldier serum that gave Captain America his powers. Technically it was Nick Fury, then it was Steve Rogers, and then Oscorp tried to copy it, but different history when it comes to the Ultimate Universe. The important thing here is that they were trying to find a way to duplicate the super soldier serum. The Oz Formula was the closest they got to it. One of the spiders bit Peter Parker went on to become Spider-Man. Here's the funny thing, the spiders of the Oz Formula bit one other person, and his name was Miles Morales. Now, that's the cool thing here, man. That's the cool thing here. Bear with me here for a second, right? Because I feel like some of you guys are like, man, no, bear with me here, right? Bear with me here. Miles Morales Spider-Man in the MCU. Spider-Man, right? This is gonna be cool. There's a couple ways that we can kind of know that this is effectively going to happen, or most likely will happen. The first is just the nature of the plot for Spider-Man 3. I love the idea of seeing like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland all teaming up in a singular movie and fighting against whatever villains they happen to face off against, regardless of however long Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in the movie for, right? It might be 15 minutes, it could be like 100 minutes. We have no real idea how long they're gonna be in it. The important thing here is that it's cool to see those guys team up, but wouldn't it be cool if that was just kind of a way to sort of train us, right? To get us introduced and acclimated to the idea of two different Spider-Men existing in the same movie franchise, the same universe, on the same Earth together. Wouldn't that be cool? Because if you got Miles Morales, that's basically what would happen, unless they kill Peter Parker. Wouldn't it be crazy if like the opening scene from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse where like Peter Parker dies is actually how Tom Holland dies? They just didn't tell us that was the case. Wouldn't that be nuts? There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that's the case. And in fact, the way he died flies in the face of seemingly everything we know about Tom Holland, but it would be cool if it happened. But I digress. The thing about this is that having Miles Morales in the MCU is basically already there, right? We know from Spider-Man Homecoming that like Donald Glover basically played Uncle Aaron. He made a reference to his nephew. We never actually got his name, but if you're familiar with the comics, the nephew of Uncle Aaron is Miles Morales. And so again, it'd be a cool concept to see that happen. The other part of this is that if Oscorp and Stark Industries are really working together, the website starts talking about things like neurogenics, right? Like biological engineering, things along those lines. Now, one of the worst kept secrets in the history of the MCU has been continued attempts to find a way to duplicate the super soldier serum, right? That was the plot of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that John Walker, US agent, is basically the next person to receive what we would call the super soldier serum of Steve Rogers, of Captain America. So we know it can be duplicated. Now, whether or not Oscorp got their hands on it, I probably doubt it. That would seem to fly in the face of the purpose of creating the Oscorp formula anyway. Why would you try to duplicate the super soldier serum when you already have it in your possession? The serum itself had basically been destroyed in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? John Walker is seemingly the only person walking around that has that serum at his disposal. And so because of that, it would make perfect sense that if somewhere over the course of the various escapades or the time that Tony Stark and Captain America were both operating, that Tony Stark took a blood sample, and basically now Oscorp has her hands on it. I know it seems a little weird to believe that Tony Stark would take a blood sample of Captain America, but would it really be weird? As much as we love Tony Stark, he was kind of a dick. So it makes perfect sense that he would steal a sample of Captain America's blood, or at the very least, S.H.I.E.L.D. got their hands on it. And when like Iron Man was hacking into the S.H.I.E.L.D. servers in Avengers 1, that he basically copied the sample, right? The data of the sample. And now Oscorp, working with Stark Industries, is essentially trying to make new super soldiers. And then over some amount of time, some things happen. What do you know? One of those spiders with the Oz formula bites Miles Morales. Boom, then you got Miles Morales Spider-Man in the MCU. You'd obviously have to do a lot of work and a lot of lead up to that to make that happen. It's not something you could just do in the next Spider-Man movie after the events of Spider-Man 3. You need to kind of work on that a little bit, but I think it's a cool concept, right? Because if they did that, right, if they used Spider-Man 3 as a way to kind of prepare us for the idea of multiple versions of the same version of Spider-Man existing temporarily or even permanently in the same landscape while they're facing off against some kind of threat, then it wouldn't be that hard for us to accept that Miles Morales exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and at the same time, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse Miles Morales is out there doing his own thing. Because by this point, we've just kind of generally accepted, yeah, it's entirely possible you've got multiple versions of the same character running around the multiverse. Loki did a great job of giving us that concept, right? We generally accepted it. I mean, we all wanted to really figure out whether or not it was a crocodile or an alligator Loki. I think that's still being debated. I don't know enough, and to be honest, I don't care enough to look it up. But one way or another, we all love the idea of there being like multiple versions of the same character appearing in different forms, similar forms across the multiverse. And while Miles Morales is not Peter Parker, he is another person bitten by a radioactive spider that gains what are in effect powers that are similar to Peter Parker's in some ways and identical to others, and starkly different than other ways than that, right? Miles Morales has like his Venom Blast, right? He's got the ability to make himself invisible, and then he's got all the other powers of Spider-Man to go on top of that, right? So it's a cool concept and it's a cool idea. This could potentially lead into a much bigger thing. But again, I want to know what you guys think about this, right? You guys kind of like, I mean, it's cool, but like, it's a bit of a stretch. Or you just kind of like, oh snap, son, Rob just flipped the script and changed the game, yeah. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I doubt anybody's reacting that way to the second part. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I kind of imagine that like when you guys are watching my videos, you guys finish and you're just kind of like, cool. And like you go on and watch the next video. I would like to believe that you guys watch my videos and you're like, yeah, man, right, Rob, man, I totally feel where you're coming from, man. You just, yeah, you know, you just get like super amped up. I don't know if that's true or not. I think it'd be awesome if it was. I'm sorry, guys, I get excited, right? I get excited when I talk about stuff like this. It's fun to me, it's exciting to me. I never care if I'm right. I just allow my imagination to go crazy and come up with the most like insane theories because it's fun, right? I just dig it, right? I just dig that whole process. But regardless, let me know what you guys think of this down in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.